Good evening and welcome to the Minions of the Zoo. I am your host, the Harry Channel, and with me tonight, providing adult supervision, is Prospero.
Hello.
Newly minted minion, DrFunctional.
Me one cookie.
Serenity Star 13, who I think was the newest minion until Functional showed up, so he does know he has to do all your stuff, right?
You took my throne, you...
No. He's the bottom guy now, so he has to do all the stuff. You have to haze him. So
Shit.
and Geos.
Yep. Hello.
Howdy.
Hi.
How's everybody doing today?
I got my potato working.
Excellent. Computer problems are the worst.
He hooked up the lemons.
Well, I need to still fix it, but it's working right now. So let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So
Hooray.
Hey, a fan held up by duct tape is still a fan.
Yes.
yes.
Have you ever reached the point of desperation where you've opened up a case and just pointed a box fan at something?
I know I have hit the point where I've taken a panel off and just let the heat just go out that way, but that's about it. So
it's a thermal solution. I'm not sure it's a good thermal solution, but it's a thermal solution. So I think if nobody has anything they need to unburden themselves of, that Functional wanted to talk about Canada for a bit.
Yeah, just real quick. There was a recent event up in, I believe it was Winnipeg, Manitoba, where there was another freedom rally. We've been having these rallies all over the country and protesting the extended lockdowns and the rather authoritarian nature of these lockdowns. And one of our political leaders, Maxime Bernier, formerly of the Conservative Party, now started his own party called the People's Party of Canada, was arrested for attending one of these rallies. They're peaceful, very peaceful, especially considering the BLM riots that have been, or mini riots, vandalism and such that have been going on here. And even the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, our Constitution, basically says, yeah, you have the right to peaceably assemble as long as you're not A, rioting, or B, causing a massive public disturbance. There's never been any disturbances, and this has sort of been a long time coming. The reason why we're not covering it just yet is I want more information on this and to see a larger narrative of what's been going on than just, hey, this happened. And yeah, really bugs me because like I said, there have been, and if you tune into the coffee stream with BP, we've talked about this a couple times now, that there have been, it's not as bad as your BLM riots down south, but there have been elements here who have been tearing down statues, vandalizing neighborhoods, lighting things on fire, as they do. And there has been almost no political or lawful response to it.
Oh, the whole Ryerson thing,
Yeah, that was a big one.
Just it's very disturbing when you see the leader of a political party get arrested at a peaceful protest. It's and it's particularly convenient when His Royal Highness, the woman that rules Canada, happens to be at the G7 clutching his hands like the other two women in the picture of all the G7 leaders, which I thought was so appropriate.
The first thing that came to mind when I saw that photo is anybody who says he is king is not king.
Yes, but that
photo,
Angela Merkel, the chick from wherever, and Justine are the only ones with their hands clenched. All the other men are standing with their hands by their side, or Boris is doing the typical
Boris thing.
British schoolboy trained arms behind the back. Harumph, I look like Churchill. But which is fine. That is a perfectly acceptable posture for a photograph like that. Biden is kind of like, "Hi, is there ice cream?" Because
isn't it sad when Boris Johnson is the least joke of a person standing there?
Yes, considering the joke he's been over the last year. Yes, very much. But it's we still have people being held who have not been charged yet for the January 6th thing,
Mm-hmm.
which is beginning. This is all beginning to smell like bills of attainder to me.
Yeah, it does seem like it is
There's not,
like cruel and unusual punishment.
well, it's justice deferred is justice denied, is it not?
Oh yeah, definitely.
We've been told. But
they're the wrong kind of people at this point.
Yeah.
Just people, wrong kind of people.
Well, Viva Fry did a very good job covering this. So if you're curious about this topic, you might want to take a look at Viva Fry's piece on it. And maybe one of you might be kind enough to link that in the chat, if you would, please.
I have a feeling that's something Gio's
Putting over other people's chins.
I got it.
Yeah, I kind of figured. He beat me to it last time. I'm
This
like, nope,
division
not
of
even
labor
trying.
thing is a thing to behold. I'm very happy.
We're just gonna call him a Lynx boy. That's all there is.
I'm
to
still
it.
trying to figure out exactly what. Well, he's basically sort of the record keeper, or the
Good.
keeper of the records, and then you're the adult supervision officer.
Great.
And, I'm still working on figuring out what everybody's titles are.
Does that mean I'm the baddie?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
I just have to get people coffee and water and cookies.
That's right. As the new person.
And we still don't have a microwave in the break room, which is very irritating.
That's HR, not me.
Oh yeah. Well, it's always been. We keep telling the newbies they're supposed to get a microwave, but they never do it.
You don't pay me enough to buy a microwave.
Well, I think
That's always the answer.
Let's begin at the beginning, as they say.
Yeah, really big microwave in order to get all of us.
This is what we were talking about before the stream, so this is all very preliminary. But the claim is, this is the Daily Wire one, we'll go to CNN in a moment. Half of pandemic unemployment money from past years stolen, bulk of it in foreign hands, according to some report. Yeah, this is cool. A stunning $400 billion in unemployment claims were likely stolen via fraud over the past year, and a bulk of that money has come from crime syndicates in places like China, Russia, and Nigeria. Criminals may have stolen as much as half of the unemployment benefits the U.S. has been pumping out over the past year, Axios reported Friday. Unemployment fraud during the pandemic could easily reach $400 billion, according to some estimates, and the bulk of the money likely ended in the hands, this is really not well written, likely ended in the hands of foreign crime syndicates, making this not just theft, but a matter of national security.
Do you want to read one of the other ones?
I mean, is it worse?
No, like CNN's actually doesn't look too bad, and the Yahoo News one's pretty short.
Well, I figured we would do the whole
Okay,
dialectic thing, and we'd
gotcha.
have thesis, antithesis, synthesis. So
Gotcha.
I'm going with the Daily Wire one first, and then we'll switch over to CNN. Don't care. But the fraud wasn't just from Americans. An estimated 70% of the fraud, yada, 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 yada. Okay. So, and of course, there's plenty of blame to go around. I mean, the general idea was it was more important to get the money out there than to make sure that there wasn't waste, fraud, and abuse, considering the number of people who'd been pretty much stripped of their livelihood because of government
Dumb to
action.
start with.
Now, in hindsight, this seems like a fairly obvious thing that may have happened.
Yes.
I mean, this should not come as a surprise to anybody. Let's see what our friends at CNN have to say.
Am I recalling correctly? But I believe that in past bailouts of one kind or another, there's been some concern or tax refunds and things like that with them being scooped up by people who have filed false returns.
In the past, there have been people who have filed false returns in order to get refunds
Yeah, and
then disappeared into the ether.
false claims, and it seems like they're not very good at verifying email addresses or bank account
ideas
records and things like that, because so much of it's being done electronically now. All somebody has to do is enter the data, and they're just accepting that as it's almost as if they don't have no program to run back checks to see whether that data is attached to the taxpayer number.
Almost as if, yes.
Almost as if they don't care.
Yeah. Almost as if they don't care. Oh,
Well,
let's see
ID
what
is
the
racist, so I don't know how you're going to get around proving people as they
Well-
are if you can't ask for some
well,
form
we
of
have records of
identification.
employment. You know, we
Yeah.
have taxpayer ID numbers and records of where people work. It's not like there isn't information. It's just that the government is so full of inertia that the idea that they're suddenly going to do something quickly and efficiently, correctly, is almost impossible for them.
And the government's full of massive incompetence, as
Yeah.
well as, no doubt, a certain number of individuals who are fundamentally corrupt, who are in positions to actually facilitate these frauds.
Yeah. I can tell you that the PPP loans
Oh God.
have a different process now. As far as, and
Yes,
I
they do.
know that there are companies that applied for PPP loans that probably had no business with them. But the
Yeah.
first trip to the trough for PPP loans, you don't have to show any loss of income.
Mhm.
All you have to do is fill out the paperwork and submit. I think you have to show that you were in business during some particular time frame. They need copies of tax returns, most recent tax returns, and like payroll, bank account, that kind of stuff. You have to actually supply some sort of evidence that you're a real business and you exist. Now, whether or not people who got the loan should have gotten the loans, whole different thing, right? Second trip to the trough, you have to actually show a loss of income. And it has to be significant enough then, and that you can say, yes, look, the pandemic did this to me. More money, please. But in the case of some of these unemployment benefits, it must have been awfully easy if, hello, my name is Peggy, and then
Yeah.
and then you just get money. Let's see what CNN has to say about this. The problem of fraudsters stealing unemployment money from the government has been turbocharged during the pandemic, when the federal government spent billions to offset lost wages and the economic shutdown. Unsuspecting victims. CNN wrote earlier this year about people surprised to get tax bills. Oh, this is annoying. That's like a whole different thing. Thank you for that. The surge in fraud began last year after Congress enacted a historic expansion of unemployment benefits, beefing up payments and opening the program to new categories of jobless Americans. At the same time, the unprecedented economic downturn prompted a flood of unemployment claims that overwhelmed state agencies, which struggled to quickly send money to those out of work and desperate. Criminals took advantage of the chaos. Kel Surprise. She adds today, let's see. Congress created a new pandemic unemployment assistance program that provides benefits to those who don't typically qualify, including freelancers, the self-employed, and independent contractors. The program was a particular target of criminals because the U.S. Department of Labor and states allowed claimants to self-certify their unemployment and earnings eligibility for traditional state benefits has to be verified through an employer. Okay. The need for the extra unemployment was recognized by everyone, passed by Republicans and Democrats, and signed into law by former President Donald Trump. President Joe Biden and Democrats extended the extra benefits until early September. Criminals have been siphoning out what they can the whole time. Now, I'm sure the states were overwhelmed, and I know that it would be tempting just to sort of apply a uniform amount of blame across this over time, right? Everybody who participated, Trump and Biden, both equally wrong. Well, Trump was in at the beginning of this thing when it was, as we started the first 2 of our 57 weeks to flatten the curve.
Mhm.
And people had to take swift action. In the time since then, every subsequent round of this stuff, there's more, to my mind, there's more of a burden on the people putting this together to get it right. It's like you had all the time in the world to come up with a better system, but instead you just kept doing what made sense at the beginning of the thing. And then people took advantage of the system because you never refined it.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the federal level just doling out money to the states, and the states themselves, those agencies, are the ones actually in charge of handling these processes?
As I understand it, yes. But I think
Okay.
when the federal government gives them money, there are strings attached to it.
Sure. I just mean to ask, like, who's actually handling the systems of checks and balances to say, okay, this person, they get money, this person, they get money, and so on and so forth.
Well, as it says here, that the crush of claims overwhelmed states was well documented. Websites crashed. Washington State had to call in the National Guard to help process them after identifying hundreds of thousands of potentially fraudulent requests last year. The FBI warned of stolen identities being used and victims not knowing their information, had been used until they themselves applied for unemployment benefits or received tax forms indicating the jobless payments they supposedly had received. Maryland announced in 2020 that it uncovered a large and sophisticated criminal enterprise and stopped $500 million in fraudulent claims in that state alone. The security blog Krebs on Security wrote that the Secret Service had uncovered a Nigerian-based crime ring called Scattered Canary. That's beautiful. I like that. Exploiting the COVID pandemic with stolen identities. Hello, my name is Peggy. The agency announced in May that it had recovered and returned $2 billion to state unemployment agencies. The state of Maryland publishes an ongoing tally of fraudulent claims. It identified more than 293,000 fraudulent claims just in Maryland alone. So, I expect we'll be hearing more about this.
At least one state took some decent action, it seems.
Yeah. And that's just the stuff they caught.
If we, I don't know if you want to go more into it, but if you scroll down, there's some more, like they go into what California did happen in California, Colorado, Ohio.
Well, tell us about the part
states.
that you think is important here. So this part right here, right?
Yeah.
California reported about $11 billion in fraudulent claims had been paid during the pandemic. Oh, $11 billion. Nothing.
Mere bagatelle.
About 10% of the total, up to an additional 17% of the total 114 billion in claims paid were being investigated for fraud. The Employment Development Department estimated that 95% of fraudulent claims were in the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program. This sounds fantastic. Okay. Colorado, Ohio, Washington. I suspect this is hitting every single state, and probably the bigger the state, the harder they were hit.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can just hide amongst
They were more bogged down.
the big
Yeah.
numbers. Yeah.
I found
well,
I found an old article from Politico that says that there's members of Congress who took out small business loans.
Oh, yeah.
The PPP.
Well, okay, so hold on. So there is a small business loan. Those are SBA loans. And
Sorry.
those are but SBA loans are a thing. They're
Yeah.
totally a thing. But the PPP loans are different, even though they're not part of the normal SBA process.
Yeah, but sorry, I misspoke. It's this is the line. Some GOP lawmakers who benefited from the Paycheck Protection Program. So it's like but it's like it's an old article, but it's basic bullshit. So,
Well, other than just sort of shaming people, there's really not much to stop people from just getting free money.
oh yeah, no, it's a lot of the articles. Because I'm trying to find numbers to see how many were rejected and how many applied, because most of the numbers are just giving me percentages, but they're not giving me actual like hard numbers.
Yeah,
but it
well, I
was
know several people who applied and got
Yeah.
money under it.
Well, it's like 70%.
Like lawyers and I know a lawyer and an accountant both who applied who
Yeah.
got money.
I know
blame
a
'em.
few people who really had no need for it, but applied and got them.
Yeah.
Well,
What's
then
the-
again, if they dangle free money in front of you
Oh,
with
yeah,
no
I
strings attached other than don't fire anybody,
Yeah.
They
Well, it's
did do the thing of not firing anybody.
But it was like talking about 70% of all small businesses in America applied, but minority businesses were hit this hardest because they were, air quotes, put the last of the line.
They were not put at the
I
last of the
know,
line.
I
It was
know.
utter horseshit.
It
They were
was-
put at the
it's-
first of the line.
There's a lot of them but there's
They
a lot
were
of
at the
articles about
VIP
that.
trough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they were also hit the hardest because those were the
Usually got
shall we
burned
say the
down.
neighborhoods on fire during that time.
Well, supposedly Forbes quotes that only 12% of minority-owned businesses applied. So that's where they get you, is that they do the tagline where it's like they didn't get equal access, but only 12% applied. So you obviously don't get a seat at the table if you didn't apply for it.
I'm always interested when they say minority too, because it's like, well, which minority is it?
Well, at
African
least-
Americans? Is it Irish Americans? Is it Jewish Americans? Like, I mean,
Is it women because
Yeah.
they still get classed as a minority because they aren't the majority of business owner.
Well, see, you don't understand.
Exactly.
You don't understand how oppression of certain groups is really racialized, even when race isn't involved. It's very complicated. I wouldn't expect everybody to get it.
Yeah.
I'm being sarcastic. It's
Yeah.
bullshit.
Yeah.
Well, it's like
Okay, let's not get bogged down too far in this. We got a lot of show, in front of here. Really big shoe. Okay, let's see. How about this? Revealed progressive Washington state politician threatened to blow up school bus, called children cowards as they fled. Now, this
that
nice
sounds like an
lady
Onion article.
with the unpronounceable name is actually running, let's see, an employee of Seattle who's been called a social justice warrior and is now a progressive candidate for the King County Council, say that 5 times fast, threatened to blow up a school bus, then called middle school students cowards as they fled. Now she hasn't done it recently. This is part of her past from 2010. According to court documents obtained by the post-millennial, Eubanks, unpronounceable, boarded the Highline School District bus on January 12, 2010 as it traveled on its morning route. Once aboard the bus, which was heading to Chinook Middle School, unpronounceable demanded that the driver tell his dispatcher that a national security incident was going on. Unpronounceable then began yelling at the children about America's relationship with Somalia, according to police reports. An audio recording of the incident demonstrated that when the driver told Unpronounceable to leave the bus, she said, "You need to calm yourself down, because I could have a bomb. Look how loose my clothes are." Deputy Prosecutor Gretchen Holmgren said students were afraid for their safety. Again, what a surprise. And as students fled through the rear emergency exits of the bus, Unpronounceable began screaming that they were cowards for abandoning their classmates. So,
Jesus Christ.
So let's see. While speaking with the middle school students, the defendant stated that she might have a bomb and might have a gun. When students attempted to escape out of the back of the bus, she called them cowards and told them they would be responsible if something happened to their classmates. Several students believed she had a weapon of some kind, and many feared for their lives. According to a detective with the King County Unpronounceable, told the arresting officer she was prepared to die. However, no weapons were found in her possession. She eventually pled the felony charges down to a gross misdemeanor before trial.
That's
she shouldn't even be
ridiculous.
seeing sky at this point.
Yeah.
This is one of those things where, like, we talk a lot about, not necessarily in this chat, but like the circles that tend to frequent like this kind of discussion. We always talk about, like, oh, well, somebody says something 5-10 years back, we shouldn't be too hyper focused on this. This is different. This is really different.
Yeah, well, Unpronounceable told the Seattle Weekly that she was hospitalized for mental illness and that her mental condition
blatantly
worsened
obvious.
after she stopped in Dubai to see in-laws on her way to visit Somalia in 2008. Okay,
Sure, Dubai loves
6
being
years
thrown
later,
under the
while
bus.
working as a community organizer, Unpronounceable appeared in a video produced by Mass Transit, now advocating for extending an area light rail project. She is referred to in the video as a social justice advocate. Yeah, she looks nice. The Somali immigrant is now the Equitable Development Division Director in the City of Seattle Office of Planning and Community Development, earning over $130,000 a year.
Oh, that must
She
be nice.
calls herself a bureaucrativist inside government. Anyway,
sorry,
this nitwit
what?
is running for a position on the county board, and she's got endorsements from other people, like
Should be strung up by her toes.
an amazing leader. I will follow Eubanks Unpronounceable anywhere. All right, Emmy, is there
That's
anything
not
to say about
culty.
this?
Yeah, that didn't sound culty at all.
Except for the fact that Washington State is doomed.
Well, I was going to say I would encourage those who live in eastern Washington State on the other side of the mountains to begin to erect a barrier as soon as possible.
Just
Or
put
try
up
to-
signs saying "Welcome to Greater Idaho."
Yes.
I mean, literally, because Idaho's like they're trying to take those counties.
Well, those counties want to join Idaho.
They're like, we want to get out. We want to get out. We want to get out.
Well, Spokane is basically Idaho anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not, but
Okay, I've got more stuff to upset you, Prospero. This is
good.
what This is all in my spreadsheet here. This is what I call the outrage block. And I really kind of
light
designed it with you.
Because I don't carry enough of that with me.
Well, I figured.
Yeah,
you'd
this
enjoy
one,
This.
this one's fucking gorgeous.
Monuments and
Not the
teams have
birds.
changed names as America reckons with racism. Birds are next.
Okay, let's fuck up Christmas. Do any of these idiots know where the name poinsettia comes from?
Nope.
Okay, good, because they need to know. I want them to start fighting over poinsettias this Christmas, because this, in the, I ate all the paint chips dipped in paste after I stuck them to the window and licked them off category. It's spectacular that these birds have been named for people, and they must all be white people.
Yeah, white people.
And boo-hoo, that makes the birding inaccessible to people of color.
Lazy son of a bitch.
No, it does not.
Could we just pretend that anything that was named before the Voting Rights Act, we just rename it?
Are they going to rename all the birds? Fine. You just call
Not
that...
all the birds, just the racist ones.
Well,
Why don't we just do away with the names, give them all serial numbers, and then we can, as new creatures are born, we can just keep tattooing these numbers onto them so there's no confusion.
We can call it Devil's Arithmetic.
Well, let's pay a serious attention to what's being said here. It said, when early naturalists like John James Audubon discovered a new bird, for example, they often named it after a friend or colleague. There's Wilson's warbler and Swainson's warbler and Kirtland's warbler, said Ken Kaufman, author of several birding field guides. Well, not the one that matters, but okay. You've got Nuttall's woodpecker and Cason's vireo. What the hell is that?
Vireo,
Cason's auklet. And then there's Bottarelli's sparrow. He's just making shit up at this point. And Bachman's sparrow. Kaufman said, like many birders, hadn't paid much attention to the people behind the bird names. That is, until last year, when he learned more about the last guy on this list. John Bachman was a Lutheran minister in South Carolina.
Sweet Jesus.
Let's see. He also fancied himself to be a scientist, said Kaufman, and part of what he wrote about was suggesting that whites were just naturally superior to members of other races. He said Bachman's theories supported efforts to justify slavery.
Oh, excuse me. Have they not read anything Margaret Sanger wrote?
That's right.
They deny her existence now.
Once you start realizing the kind of things that these historical characters, says Kaufman, the bird's name takes on a more sinister tone.
Oh, for Christ's sake, it does
Because nothing sounds
not.
more sinister than, okay, what was this guy's name?
Yeah,
Bachman's
John Bachman.
Sparrow.
Bachman's sparrow. That does sound pretty sinister.
I mean,
It
tell
knows what it
everybody
did.
it was named for Bachman Turner Overdrive, and let's just keep moving.
It can be named for Michelle Bachman. I don't care.
Yeah, it's BTO's Sparrow.
I thought
Yes,
birds
people
loved
believed
eating
stupid
crackers.
things in the 19th century. I know. Next.
Christ.
Yeah, it's just silly. It's part of the zero tolerance for the past approach to things. It's like people were not as socially developed or as enlightened in the 19th century. What is your point?
The history's full of things that make me sad. Make it stop.
Yeah.
I'm sorry your mom and dad didn't give you the pony, Mr. Kaufman. But number one, you're starting this crusade on behalf, Mr. White-splainer.
Well, he's right there, and he's still. Girls are not going to like you, and you're still going to die alone. Just
Yeah.
saying. Let's see. Jordan Rutter, a young birder from Washington, D.C., is co-founder of Bird Names for Birds, a group trying to make birding more inclusive by removing all eponymous bird names. That is, those named after people. Yeah, we know what eponymous means, idiot. Rutter, in August 2020, petitioned the American Ornithological Society, the body that determines the names of birds, to take up the cause. We call these bird names verbal statues, Rutter says, because so many of them truly are honoring folks that were involved in colonial and Confederate times.
That's because that's when the fucking birds were found.
Exactly.
I tell you
Rutter
what.
says removing eponymous names might also re-energize efforts to protect bird habitats. Again, how?
No,
as
it
we
won't.
have this community-wide education event to relearn the names, we could talk about the conservation need that they have. So I'm going to go and get, my big book of birds, my Audubon field guide, and all of these things are going to be obsolete because somebody held his breath and threw a tantrum with the American Ornithological Society.
Yeah, I hope the American Ornithological Society just looks at them and says, "Ooh, show me on the dolly where the name hurt you."
Fuck off, commie.
Well,
It's a bird. It's gonna shit on your head regardless what its name is.
well, the only thing, like, I did a search for the boy, Bachman,
Mm.
and I've only found one passage, and it's not good, but it's not that I've
It's
read
not
worse.
good. It's
Yeah.
not good. Yeah, I've read Margaret Sanger.
Yeah,
I
Um,
like that, Kiev.
basically,
Prospero.
it legit was he was
Yeah.
trying to say that people of another color were inferior, and thus as Caucasians and owners, that we still need to treat them kindly, but they could never reach our level. That's basically the footnotes version of the passage.
we're going to end up with people not being able to recognize birds
Yep.
anymore. And they're going to go, that bird over there.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because everything's going to be racist.
I'm waiting for them to say something about house finch. I really am.
I propose that they make all bird names just various chirps and cawing sounds. That's
Oh.
that's
I
what we
pref-
really have to boil down
No,
to.
house finch is extremely triggering because not all
Yeah.
people have houses. It should be called shelter
Domicile-
dwelling finches. I think
Domicile
that should be-
dwelling finches. Let's
Because
make
there's
it-
more than one type of shelter than just houses.
How
Yeah, but-
racist is penguin?
the refrigerator box finch.
So
The under the overpass in LA finch.
exactly. So we don't need to say a whole lot about this, but it seems like a number of red states, in quotes, are actually trying to stop the march of critical race theory. And given that the federal government controls so much stuff, I don't know how effective this is going to be.
Yeah, it's like good fucking luck.
Well, what is happening, I think, that is positive is that school boards are getting faced with irate parents
Mhm.
who've copped wise to the bullshit that's going on in the school systems. And what went on in Loudoun County was positively spectacular. Loudoun County, Virginia, it's to the west of the DC megalopolis. Number one, the school board chairperson wanted everybody to use jazz hands at the meeting, and they just kept applauding because there was also a big trans issue going on where a teacher had said he was not going to say ever that a boy was a girl. He said it was against his religious principles, which it certainly could be deemed that. He also could have simply stuck with the biological principle of no, you're not. You may think you are, but you're not.
We might have to have a serious discussion about this trans stuff at some point.
Yes.
Because if we're going to do this, we probably really should do it right and talk about primary characteristics, secondary characteristics, and give it a real discussion.
Well, this
Because there are interesting things that do happen in gene expression. There are some really interesting ways things can go wrong, right? So that the coding doesn't seem to match the outcome. And those are really interesting. I mean, I think I've told everybody, I met somebody with Klinefelters one time, and it's like the first thing I thought was, for a dude, that guy has really long eyelashes. It's like, what the hell is going on? And then for some reason, he's like, I have Klinefelters. It's like, okay. That explains a lot.
But as far as I've been
He
able
didn't
to
talk
discern,
like that. He was actually a decent guy and a pretty normal.
Well,
dude.
Tiger Woods has very long eyelashes,
There you
so part of that's he's got his mother's eyes.
Well, rather than talk this particular topic to death, let's just look at the states that are currently doing this. So we've got, shut up the hill. Okay, we've got Arizona, Arkansas, Idaho. Doesn't say anything about Greater Idaho, but it says Idaho. Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maine, Michigan, well, that surprises the hell out of me. They've got Whitmer as governor. How? Oh, so the Republicans have introduced a bill. That's going to be dead on arrival.
They're all ours.
Missouri, New Hampshire, North Carolina, Ohio, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island. That's where Jenna is.
State.
Yeah. South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, and West Virginia.
Some of these states have Democratic governors and Republican legislatures.
We don't.
Like Pennsylvania and Michigan. The one thing they may accomplish is teeing up the argument in the local school boards, because if localities take a stand, I understand there's the behemoth of the federal Department of Education, but if a number of localities are like, nope, because there's still a fair bit of trickle-down autonomy. You have to follow the state curricula that follows the federal curricula. And then within the localities, there's a little further application of that. But if you start a bottom-up fuck you on this, you're going to see state legislatures doing this because they're getting a lot of negative feedback from the localities. And then you're going to have public protests that are getting headline news, which gets the attention of the federal authorities. And at some point, someone needs to be forced in front of Congress or the Senate, the House or the Senate, take your pick, to define specifically what they mean with this agenda and to defend it. And then put it to the legal test, because there's a lot about CRT that might be sued over because it is outright discrimination.
Yeah.
In a federal structure. It is happening in federal employment structure. It's happening in state employment structure. And where I'm afraid the horse may have left the barn, corporate culture.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Biden's already lost a couple key cases. He wanted to give a bunch of money to get black people back on the farm.
Yes.
And that he was told, no, cut that out. But private institutions, like private educational institutions taking government money, so far seem to be okay on sort of racial quotas. Functional, I got the sense you wanted to say something, and then we're going to move on to the next thing, because I know this next thing, this is probably depressing Prospero, but the next thing, totally going to cheer her up.
Oh, that was me, I think, actually.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I misnamed you. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say one thing that people need to be aware of and be careful. And I think this was in New Hampshire. I could be wrong. But there is a member of New Hampshire who's, I don't know exactly what seat he is in, but he's a Republican. He is actually one of the Republicans advocating for critical race theory, and is actually trying to, I think, make it seem more like he's a middle ground politician. And it's one of those things where people really need to be paying attention. If you plan on fighting this stuff, you need to pay attention to who your elected officials are and who's speaking out against this versus who is catering to this.
I believe it is their governor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sununu. It's Chris Sununu.
What a name. I'm sorry.
No, he's John Sununu's son, who was in the Bush administration. HW.
That explains
His chief of staff, I think. HW's chief of staff.
Yeah, John Sununu.
Yeah, and I mean, they're multi-generation political family from New Hampshire.
So corrupt to their bones is what you're telling me.
No, not necessarily, but lacking sense.
Gotcha.
Okay,
Sorry,
you're gonna
Functional.
love. You're gonna love this, Prospero. This is. Go ahead.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
Oh, just to quickly play off what Geodes was just saying, I think this is one of the small silver linings of the lockdowns with the distance learning, because parents who would otherwise be politically ignorant are now wisening up, and it might possibly in future cause a shift like it has up here.
seeing those Zoom meetings opened a lot of people's eyes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Blew up in the teachers' faces.
Well, there is a movement to get cameras in classrooms. Karlin Borisenko is quite an advocate for it, since they are taxpayer-funded public squares of education, and these Zoom classes, the teachers berating students, and it's all on film for not toting the party line. Or for having the wrong political opinions
We're
and things.
admonishing them for being the wrong race.
It's
Yes.
all these
There's
women
also, yeah.
are molesting young boys, these teachers, these young women.
Yeah.
I swear we
Mhm.
need to put body cameras on every single one.
Well, that,
Yeah, that's an even better
another
idea.
reason that they want cameras in the classroom, because the preponderance of teachers now are female.
Yeah.
It is very much a feminized profession and feminist profession now.
Mhm.
I hesitate to call it a profession, but I'll be kind for the purposes of brevity. But there are not many males in schools, and in part it's because of happy horse shit like this. That they are not. The teacher distribution when I was in high school was closer to a 50-50.
Yeah.
Mhm.
same.
Or more men than women, actually. And in elementary, I encountered male teachers in a male principals in elementary schools. In junior high school, it was a split. I never paid attention, okay, because that's not how my brain functions. It's, is my teacher any good? Not what dangles between their legs or doesn't.
Yeah.
And now it is highly feminized. It is being run by a bunch of morons.
Mhm.
This No Child Left Behind has done nothing but increase the mediocrity in the profession of teaching. And, as we've said 1,000 times, we could spend probably 50 hours of stream time going through everything that is wrong in the education.
We could just do
Yeah.
a book club thing on Thomas Sowell's latest book, and that would be a fine episode.
Yeah.
There's
So this will cheer you. Okay, we're not talking about this anymore. Okay, enough. How about this? Is this going to cheer you up, Prospero? America's image abroad
Affairs.
rebounds with transition from Trump to Biden.
I care so much. I have
Yeah.
always, in my heart of hearts, I worry every day. What are the people in Estonia thinking about America?
Well,
what are the people in Denmark
But
thinking?
look
of
at
America?
how much confidence there is in America as
Look
Biden
how
goes around.
tidy that graph is.
Look at how tidy that and look at it's because there, as far as the Democrats are concerned, when it comes to any kind of foreign thing, there's no problem that we can't spend our way out of.
Absolutely.
It's always just showing up with their damn
or
checkbook.
shoot our way out of, which includes spending our way out of.
Well, but and for instance, Kamala, whatever her name is in Guatemala right now, and what she wants to do is basically just give them money to make Guatemala really nice, so people won't leave and come here.
Guatemalans could handle their own stuff.
Yeah. So here, let's see. Look at this. France likes us more. Germany likes us more. Japan.
My God,
likes
it
us
looks like
more.
election night.
I know.
Sorry.
Italy, Netherlands, Canada.
That's
Look,
a
Canada.
lie.
You guys
That's-
like us way more.
That's a lie. Japan's a
Sweden.
lie too.
You know what?
Japan's a
They're probably-
Look
flaming
at
lie.
Greece is really Greece is so excited about
I
this.
guarantee you they're not talking about the people, but media pundits.
Yeah,
Yes.
it has to be. Because there's no way in hell Japan loved Trump. Same thing with
Mhm.
Greece.
Okay.
Same thing with Canada. Like I have,
This is
Jap-
from
I
the
have
Global Attitudes Survey. America's image abroad rebounds a transition from Trump to Biden.
There is
Spring
an-
What's the
2021 says
numbers?
right. Look. Trump a measly 15% in
uh-huh.
Sweden, and then Biden a robust, manly, vigorous 85%.
You want to notice something very, very interesting about this chart? There are a whole bunch of nations on the other side of Germany toward Russia in Europe. Not a single one of them is on that list.
Yeah. No. This was compiled by top people.
This is all the EU.
Basically saying you will listen to us. And vote.
Oh, absolutely. And it's, I mean, what they did for all those EU states, other than the UK, but the UK, they ran through one particular side of
Yeah.
Parliament and ask questions. And sure, this is exactly what it is. They're so glad that we're going to start Apology Tour 2.0.
And
Go
Prospero,
below,
yeah, I also
that
wonder
graph,
what
Harry.
I also
Sorry,
wonder
down
what
more.
the Middle East looks like.
Scroll
Scroll
down.
down more.
Which
That one.
Keep going.
That one. That one's horseshit. Look at that. Strong leader, my butthole.
Yeah. Because when I think strong leader, I think former
Well
Vice President Joe
qualified.
Biden.
Well
Serenity, and
qualified.
that first one reminds me of that scene in Infinity Gauntlet when,
Yeah.
if you consider failure experience.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. The interesting thing is there were some there were some happy little rumors coming out of that G7 summit, including some text that I think was it Jack Posobiec was passing around.
That's the next thing right here.
That's the laugh.
Yeah.
Yes. So this made me laugh. Why don't you just cover this one, Prospero?
Well, this cheered me up because it's the goddamn Labour Party.
Mm-hmm.
And the Labour Party in Great Britain decided, I mean, they got rid of Jeremy Corbyn because he had a little Jew-hating problem.
He was a little too extreme.
He was a little too extreme. And they have Sir Keir Starmer now, who's not doing any better. Because Labour is full of champagne socialists. Absolutely full. Now, Starmer repositioned the shadow government, so he got rid of McDonnell, who was an outright communist. Moved some of these people back to the back benches.
Did he move Diane Abbott?
Of course not, because
nothing could move Diane Abbott.
I mean, there isn't a crane built that will lift that load.
Hello, Dolly.
Yeah, no kidding. But by and large, Labor is significantly more left than some of the Democrats in Congress. But they are very much akin to the Sanders left.
Yep.
Now, that would make some of them not like Biden because he's an establishment neolib kind of wing dude, but they all just fell to pieces over Obama, and of course he was Obama's right-hand thing. And the idea that they were saying that Biden had no fucking idea of really what the hell was going on. That even with note cards
didn't do it.
that he's utterly confused. And now it doesn't surprise me given what we all kind of think is wrong with him. And granted, we're not supposed to make diagnoses from a distance, and none of us are healthcare professionals in that regard. Those disclaimers aside, any president that calls a lid on it at 9:30 in the morning has a problem, physical or otherwise. And the being led around by the hand by Mama, Dr. Lady Macbeth giving the speech to our troops in Great Britain.
All of them hated it.
The peculiarities that we have witnessed of not knowing which way to walk off a stage.
Hold on. Did Jill Biden give a speech to the troops?
Yes, she most definitely did.
Was she originally scheduled to do this?
I do not know.
Filling in?
He was on the stage with her, but standing behind her. I wish Skep were here because he watched it and he said it was intensely uncomfortable to observe this because by protocol, I mean, there's no protocol for this. None at all. She's not co-commander in chief by dint of sharing a bed with the president. That's not how this works. But it's almost like we have Edith Wilson on steroids. Where
she made a joke about Joe pay attention.
Well, yes, she tries to joke away these problems, just like we all have to understand that completely misspeaking and not being able to actually get the right words out, multiple times referring to your vice president as the president-elect. These things are all part and parcel of a stammer.
Yeah.
I had a grandfather who stammered. I never heard him misspeak in stammering. I heard him hang or stutter. on words, or completely lock and make that. Colin Firth did the sound actually in King's speech, that of the glottal stop, consistent, like, I mean, almost like his esophagus was just spasming.
I found the clip, by the way, and I posted in chat. So
thank you. But it is. I want to know when the confidence and U.S. public image poll was taken. I would love to see what people who have been present at these events have thought. Because I cannot believe that well qualified is what anybody's going to think after personal experience around. Because Dr. Lady Macbeth is not well qualified to be president. Nor are the apparatchiks that seem to be circling. A whole bunch of them are left. The teenagers left over from the Obama administration.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to take issue with arrogant, though.
Yeah, no.
I
But
think
dangerous.
We'll just say that one's a gimme. Dangerous, yeah, with all of his not war making.
And all of
his peacemaking, dangerous, really.
But it's also very telling, because
it sounds like you're polling wonks. Is what
he made him pay. He made him pay their NATO dues, and they didn't like that. Remember this?
Yeah.
Well, it's also
and
like
hated the EU, which makes them hate him back.
Well, I pulled up all the polling info because they have to show the polling info. And it's the normal Gallup poll of around 1,001 some countries, and it's all by telephone. So like Canada was 1,011, Belgium was 1,006, France was 985. Margin of error is around 3.9 to 4.1 for all of them. And there were certain restrictions for certain countries. Let me see if I can find it. Canada had restrictions about, like, they didn't ask anybody in the Yukon, Northwest Territories, functional. None of it.
None of it.
None of it.
None of it.
They did not ask any population in that area. But yeah, no, I hate how Gallup does their polls.
Do they say the qualifications of the people polled? Were they registered voters?
The only thing any of them was adult population 18 plus. That was the only qualifier for all of them.
So they could literally
pick and choose.
Have gone into one of the refugee camps and made phone calls.
Yep, and it was whoever answered the phone.
And those three territories kind of make sense because you'd be hard pressed to find 1,000 people.
True, but
they're in the middle of the Arctic. So.
Well, given that you're talking to people who have landlines, I would think that since 90% of the coverage was slanted against Trump, that you would expect that group of people would be well within the bubble.
Yes.
More so than, say, the group that doesn't have landlines. But yeah, the methodology by which they do that is not really the issue. So there's a follow-up to something that we've talked about a few times here. Anticipating war with China, the U.S. Air Force is fanning out across the Pacific. So I've mentioned Okinawa and a few other things in some previous things. So this is just a follow-up. So we don't need to spend a lot of time rehashing this whole thing. But says here, for years, the U.S. Air Force concentrated its warplanes at just two bases in the Western Pacific, for fighters, Kadena Air Force Base in Japan's Okinawa Prefecture, and for bombers and big support planes, Guam's Andersen Air Force Base. They have to put them so that they're balanced so they don't tip the island over. Beijing eyed these mega bases and devised a simple strategy for suppressing U.S. air power in the region. Build a couple thousand non-nuclear ballistic missiles, and in wartime, lob them at the bases until their runways, aprons, hangars, fuel tanks, and warehouses are nothing but craters. After years of buildup, the Chinese rocket force possesses around 1,300 ground-launched missiles with sufficient range to hit Kadena and Andersen from mainland China. The U.S. Air Force is keenly aware of the threat. I mean, hell, we were keenly aware of the threat. I would hope the Air Force is. It has its own plan for dodging the missile barrages. The idea is to spread out hundreds of warplanes across potentially dozens of smaller bases, thus diluting the striking power of China's rocket force. The Air Force won't say exactly which bases are part of its plan, because that would be dumb, but it's possible to make educated guesses. American territories and small islands countries offer the most dependable facilities. Arguably, the most important bases in the Philippines are accessible only at the whim of that country's mercurial president. Thank you for that editorial comment. The emerging map of the United States Air Force's expanding base network also reveals where the services has potential airfield gaps, most glaringly in the Philippine Sea east of Taiwan. In that gap, the U.S. Navy's Pacific Fleet might lend its sister serving a helping hand and deploy some of its 10 aircraft carriers and big deck assault ships. Basically, yeah, having all of our eggs in one basket in Okinawa is a problem. And as I said, we're going to be seeing a lot more military cooperation with India.
Oh, yeah.
India
Oh, yeah.
is no friend of China.
Uh-uh.
And
No.
honestly, almost everything we get from China, we can get better from India.
Of course
Yeah.
we can.
So,
And they're also
So much
more
better.
open to the to technological conversion and business partnership than
yeah, and they
than
might
China is.
actually embrace democracy when we put more companies there. I mean, India has been evolving at a pretty good pace, socially.
They stalled after the Raj because they decided to toss their lot in with Russia. That was a decision based on the particular alliances at the time. The U.S. was allied, of course, with Europe, and that meant Great Britain. And Britain was the Raj, and they were the suck bastards. So the Soviets courted them, and they were considered very much within the Soviet sphere of influence, which actually retarded their development.
Speaking of retarded,
By China, do they mean West Taiwan?
yes, exactly. Twitter condemns Nigeria, says access to open internet is essential human right. Now, this is presented without any irony. They're using single quotes, not sort of irony double quotes. Do we need to talk about this?
just a good
Jack
giggle.
Dorsey is an amazing hypocrite. That's all we need to say.
And take that damn thing out of your nose, you idiot.
Oh God, he is such. Oh God, that man is just a wreck of a human being.
Yeah. Maybe he has a man bun.
He
be.
probably has a he-hive wig.
Probably.
In his pants. I hope that this spurs more countries to be a little bit more aware of the problems with the social media platforms, most notably Twitter, because the people who are trying to fight for open internet without these filters through Twitter or whatever, they're gaining more notoriety. I know in Britain and a couple other European countries, those types of politicians who are speaking out against tech censorship have gained a little bit more traction because of this.
Well, also because of hate speech laws and things like that have not been
Enforced.
Well, they're being enforced.
Well, I mean, not equally.
Not absolutely not equally. They're not being enforced in the U.S. equally.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my God, Ilhan Omar should have been yeeted off of Twitter ages ago. But
Well, the thing is, it's not a platform. Functional was calling it a platform. It's not a platform. It's a publisher. Clearly, if it was a platform, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
yes, but they're, that, oh boy.
Say they're a platform.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they have the legal protections of a platform. But let's see where that goes.
Yeah.
It
Well-
says it's a duck. It looks like a duck. It quacks like a duck, but
they have no
stomping around like
problem
an elephant.
removing certain political people, including candidates, from their platforms, even though they've been told a candidate can't block people on those platforms. I find that a very interesting.
Wasn't there a major world leader who was heated off the platform?
Yeah,
I think
you
it's Donald
can't rationalize
Trump.
this.
Yeah.
And then Facebook extended his ban. They took down the fact that he was president of the United States before the election.
Oh yeah.
Then had him up as a political candidate. I mean,
Platform.
that's absolutely insane. But their fact checkers really know what they're talking about.
I'll give it to Facebook. They didn't do that.
So the government actually did something good.
Yeah, this was awesome.
How a new team of feds hacked the hijackers and got Colonial Pipeline's ransom back. Well, about half of their ransom back.
Well, we
But still.
suspected this to begin with, that it was probably white hats linked to the government.
Well, they did do a bunch of raids, and they've been coming down hard on these guys because it's like you start monkeying with the United States oil supply, and what is it? Fuck around and find out. Is that the way the phrase goes?
Mhm.
Yeah. The Department of Justice on Monday touted the recovery of $2.3 million, about half of the ransom that was collected by hackers in the Colonial Pipeline attack last month. Experts say it was a surprising outcome to an increasingly frequent and severe crime. Ransomware is very seldom recovered, said April Falcon Doss. Oh, people are exploding things outside. Cool. Executive director for the Institute for Technology Law and Policy at Georgetown Law, who described it as a really big win for the government. What we don't know is whether or not this is going to pave the way for future similar successes. You know that they probably offered money and these people turned on each other. Because, like, for instance, when you talk about security, you know, like in theory, you shouldn't be able to break the keys, the crypto stuff, securing all this Bitcoin that was moved around to pay this stuff. But when you talk about encryption, there's a particular type of decryption which works nearly all the time. And in the industry of which I'm part, they refer to it as rubber hose decryption.
Yes.
Rubber hose decryption works a shocking percentage of the time, and it doesn't require any sophisticated quantum computers or anything like that. Once you get your grubby little hands on somebody and sit them down in a chair and explain the situation to them, you usually get stuff decrypted.
Yep. You showed them a picture of the cell blocks at Leavenworth, and that always cheers them up.
Yeah. So when you design security systems, I mean real security systems, you factor in, you have to factor in for the fact that sometimes people get compromised. You can't expect people to withstand unreasonable amounts of pressure, you know, which is why you only give certain types of information to people on a need-to-know basis. It's the whole reason that you compartmentalize information, because as long as there are humans involved, humans are fallible.
Mm-hmm.
But this is pretty awesome. I mean, holding these people to task is a great thing. And the fact that there's a group in the government that went after these guys and got any of it back is actually pretty amazing.
Yes.
So good job, federal government.
You
Give them the
something.
POB. Yeah, give them the POB.
That's
Good
it.
job.
Good
Good job.
job.
Good job.
There you go. You need the sound effect to be Angry
Oh,
Cops.
this. Thank you. Angry Cops is a great channel.
It is. It's absolutely wonderful. So is Donut Operator.
Speaking of Bitcoin, El Salvador becomes first country to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender after passing law.
This is
What
going
was
to work
that?
out just fine.
El Salvador has become the first country to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender. Lawmakers in the Central American country's Congress voted by a supermajority in favor of the Bitcoin law. El Salvador has become the first country. Okay, so much repeat here. Lawmakers in the Central American country's Congress voted by supermajority in favor of the Bitcoin law, receiving 62 out of 84 of the legislature's vote. The price of Bitcoin, don't care. It's not the issue here. This is pretty amazing. I mean, this is the first time that anybody's actually treated Bitcoin as if it was something real. And for a country like this that can't just go out and buy a bunch of gold, why not?
Yeah.
What's the downside for them? At least there's something that prevents them from just printing money. It's literally tying something that's translatable into their own currency to something that there's a finite amount of it.
Yeah.
I don't see the downside, honestly. I mean, I know Bitcoin is kind of volatile, but you know, compared to the currency in El Salvador to begin with,
It was a bit unexpected. That's for sure.
you were going to say Serenity?
She didn't. She's taking care of the doggies.
Oh, sorry.
This is when I wish Skep were here.
Yeah.
Because, you know, he'd be probably a little bit concerned about a nation actually choosing an alternative to fiat currency.
Mm-hmm.
And whether there's going to be a contagion of this, I don't think there will, primarily because of how volatile Bitcoin is. But in these,
actually, I didn't see this. Sorry, their official currency is the U.S. dollar.
yes,
So,
yes,
Bitcoin, given the issues that foreign countries sometimes have getting a hold of dollars, I don't know what the trade situation is like with El Salvador right now. Having something like Bitcoin sort of acting as kind of lubricating their financial systems doesn't sound like such a bad idea.
from their point of view, no.
No. Anyway.
Whether we should be concerned remains to be seen, I think, as to whether there is a trend forming of,
And speaking of trends, there's this thing which just annoys the crap out of me. This is something, as opposed to the other stuff, which was sort of all kind of light and fun for the most part, this is something that actually really pisses me off. A bunch of millennials have bought houses, and now they're sad because they don't have the kind of spending money they had before they started paying a mortgage. And because, apparently, according to this article, they're sad that things in their house keep breaking, and then they have to fix them. I'm giving, like, the super short version of it. Yeah, when you own nice things, those things kind of own you, too. It doesn't matter if it's a Lamborghini or a house or something else. I always encourage all the people I know, the younger people, to avoid debt and try to get property as soon as possible, because when you're paying rent, you're just paying somebody else's mortgage. It's not a good long-term strategy to basically pay rent most of the time. I totally understand there are circumstances in which it makes good sense. Like if you're going to be in an area for like 2 years or less type of thing. Because you don't want to basically pay the fees for buying and selling a property that you're not going to have very long. Because that's several percent.
Yes.
It's one of the rules that was listed, I believe, in The Richest Man in Babylon. Is like rule number 5 or something, was try to own your own property and stuff if you can, and to avoid paying rent so that you have more control over your finances partially and have something tangible as well.
Oh yeah, that equity is an amazing thing to have. It is an amazing thing to have because things will break, and that equity is it is a tangible negotiating chip in garnering the cash to fix the things that break or replace the things that break. It improves your credit to have tangible property like that. What you are seeing is in a highly disposable generation of people, as they have been defined. They're very consumery, but they're also very disposally. They're upset that they now have to do things. What do you mean I have to cut the grass?
No, but you can get a condo. I mean, I have a friend who's a proper adult guy. He's coming up on 60. He bought a condo in Cupertino. Not a condo, but an apartment in Cupertino. And he's on the board for the building, for essentially the homeowners association. And in exchange for the few $100 a month that they pay, it comes with all the grounds being taken care of, so you don't have to mow a lawn.
Right.
And you also get, and you can buy this separately as an individual, sort of a special home insurance policy that just covers all the crap in your house, everything from your sewer to your washer, your dryer, whatever.
But you have to pay for those things, and that means you can't order from Grubhub every night.
Yeah.
And you can't buy that new model car that you want.
But hold on. The big difference here, other than the fact that you're paying money in and getting equity, the big difference is if you have $1,000 mortgage versus $1,000 rent, in 5 years with inflation, you're still going to have $1,000 mortgage. The person who's paying rent is going to be paying $1,500. And over time, that difference just gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yes, it does. But
so even if you don't think about the equity or anything else, it's a way of simply saying, yes, this sucks. I'm going to be brown bagging my lunch for a long time, but it's totally worth it. And if you really can't handle maintaining a house, you can pay for the privilege of not having to do that.
Yeah, and the thing that a lot of people, I remember the tragic period of time in the 90s when a lot of people went for variable rate mortgages and balloon mortgages, and then took it up the ass when there was a significant rate shift.
They got the arm is what they got.
Yeah, they had the whole arm up the shoulder.
It was all creatures great and small, basically.
Yes.
What they got from the mortgage companies.
Yeah, I mean, so I know you do this, but to counsel all of you young'uns out there, fixed rate mortgage. Yes, your payments will be higher, but that's a fixed rate mortgage. With mortgage rates as low as they are right now, they're not going to go down anytime soon. Even if they did, the difference would not be that significant, but there is something called refinancing. And if you've had your home long enough, that a point that you might have to pay will still be to your benefit for available reduction in mortgage rate, it can be worth it. You have to factor in how long you expect to be in that house, job security, blah, 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 all that kind of thing. But a fixed rate mortgage, eat it on the higher payment, people. Because trust me, you're going to watch your friend who's like, you're paying $350 more a month than I am in my apartment. In 2 years' time, they're going to be bitching to you.
Yeah.
That their rent's doubled.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to pretend that I know everything. It's just that there's a few things I've learned over time, and one of the things I just try to tell anybody who's just starting to sort of get into this phase of their life where they're ready to get serious about stuff financially is you don't want to be paying rent.
I have 2 words for you, boy. Real estate.
Real estate and plastics.
Plastics, yes.
Are you trying to seduce me, Mrs. Robinson?
No, sir.
Another great
Good
advantage that America is almost uniquely possessive of is the physical mobility. You can go within your state, and from one end to the other, you'll have so much variation in property costs,
yes,
land value, and still relative similar access to things. And then you can go from state to state. That's certainly not the case up here. It's certainly not the case in a lot of small, tiny European countries.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, if I was there, I would be much more.
We have lots of suburbs. We have lots of small to medium-sized cities that have pretty much all the amenities you need. They're going to have health care, although young people don't tend to think about that. They still will. They'll have access to, there'll be an AutoZone. There'll be plenty of fast food. There'll be a community college plus a college, possibly a private one nearby. You'll have internet access. You'll have the grocery stores coming out your yin yang. You will hear people go, but they don't have Whataburger. It's like, oh, Jesus Christ. Because I've seen people, they're living in expensive cities.
Yep.
And you suggest, have you considered moving?
Oh,
well,
God.
I don't want to leave the messenger food delivery system, or I don't want to well, fine, sit there and hemorrhage money. That's your choice.
And no one's telling them to move to the Rocky Mountains. You're still in a town or a small medium city where you're still going to have access to Grubhub and Uber Eats and all these other delivery services, Amazon, Walmart delivery.
Or you can just fucking learn to cook too. It's not that
God
difficult.
Forbid. Learn a basic survival skill.
I mean,
the dollar savings in brown bagging your lunch versus going to a fast food restaurant every day and getting your lunch.
Do you remember that story that we had a few weeks ago? When was it? About the guy who was spending all this money buying lunch when he would go to work, and so his wife started making sandwiches for him.
And then he was selling them.
He said, "Could I have a second one?" He was selling them, and then using the money to go buy fast food.
Yeah, well, idiots will do that. The amazing thing is it's like people who will pay $16 for coffee.
Hey, I love a chili burger as much as the next guy, maybe a little bit more, but
Yeah.
you can't eat that crap every single day.
Well, it's
$5
like,
milkshake. That's just milk and ice cream, right?
Yeah, but yeah, it's the thing. The thing is, I mean, I was stunned during the pandemic by the number of people who, you want to talk about food insecurity. It completely came from the fact that they didn't know how to cook.
Oh yeah.
Serenity, did you want a piece of this?
well, it's like, I mean, look at my neck of the woods. Like everybody, like there's actually apparently a rather popular TikTok now that's calling my state racist. First off, bite me, bitch. But secondly, it's like everybody assumes that my state, we have nothing, and it's like no. There's literally the Ohio River Valley, which you can get. We're within an hour and a half to 3 hours of Lexington, Louisville, Columbus, Cincinnati.
But there's no charge point for my new Tesla.
I know. I love the fact that West Virginia is a black hole for Tesla
You
charge
have
points.
practically no place to plug in an electric
great.
car.
But we still have Teslas, which is hilarious. But it's like, but then
But they're towing a generator on a trailer.
basically.
Yeah.
But or you go to the Northern Panhandle and
It's
you
a
can,
hybrid.
and you can get up to like Pittsburgh and Uniontown and all that stuff, or the other Panhandle, which is near Washington. It's like my home state. Yes, we have boonies, and yes, we have all that stuff. But like, there's Grubhub down here where I live. I can
Exactly.
pull
There's
up Grubhub and
Beckley,
get
there's
food.
Beckley, there's Bluefield, there's Wheeling, there's
Yeah,
Huntington.
Christiansburg.
you have food.
across the fucking-
You have meals and people who know how to cook. Astonishing.
it's like people have realized like how not bad this state is though, because houses literally aren't staying on the market right now because there's houses that are 3,000 square feet plus that are $100,000 if that in certain places.
Wow.
Yep. And there are people buying second homes, my
Yeah.
friend. They're buying in case they need to relocate. I mean,
Yeah.
I know people who, and it's not because they're completely paranoid or preppers or anything like that, but they have bought property more out in the hinterlands, in part to escape, because they were able to walk around free.
Yeah.
In those areas during the pandemic, but to get away from it all,
Oh yeah.
to have that incredible amount of equity in land surrounding you, because land is a finite resource. We have plenty of it in the United States, but it is still a finite amount.
Yeah.
And land values come and go, but if you're holding land for long term, there are a lot of people who never ever would have imagined that they could get the cash they're getting now with the building boom that's going on in a lot of states, the housing pressures. And I mean, people are selling sizable amounts of farmland for a pretty damn good paycheck. They're getting
Bill Gates is buying it all.
well.
I know, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, for farming, yes, but I mean, there are the number of subdivisions that I have seen developing out away from the traditional suburban counties of the greater Richmond area alone. They're pushing farther and farther out. Now, I feel a little badly for those counties because they've got all that, the incumbent infrastructure concerns and water support and that kind of thing. But, West Virginia is not, like you said, there are hills and hollers, but there are cities. Charleston is not small.
Nope.
It's not huge, but it's a city. Huntington.
That's what makes it nice.
It's a city. These are cities.
Yeah.
There's a university and everything.
Budding city.
There's 2 universities and everything.
Yeah,
Well,
but
technically-
if money's becoming worthless, buy something real.
Yes.
Buy something that has an intrinsic value to it.
And learn to plant a garden.
And
God.
even if I was doing it all over again, there are plots of land in California, even in the mountains, that are really, really inexpensive. Sometimes you can buy them if all you do is just pay the back tax bill on them.
Yeah.
I know of one in Lake County that's like that. I know of a piece of property that a friend of mine has. He would literally give it to me if I would take it off his hands. It's not impossible to get something like that, or even if you've got a group of people, and maybe you're not living in it, maybe it's just an investment. Why not get 5 or 6 people together and actually go in together on a commercial property?
What's like
so that you become the landlord, and then maybe you can buy a house after that. I don't know, but don't people on these TV shows, these dreadful HGTV bullshit shows, they show up and there's like, I have to have an entire closet just for my shoes, and we need to have our forever home, and it needs to reflect our personality. No, you need to stop paying rent, even if that means getting a cheap house that's kind of adjacent to a neighborhood you don't like all that much. Step 1 is stop paying somebody else's mortgage, and then you can work out the details after that.
What's like for those in outside of the immediate people, like my family has 50 acres of land that's been passed down through the family since my granddaddy,
and not subdivided.
Yeah, not subdivided.
Awesome.
And we live out a holler, and the worth of this land has gone up 300%. Just in 6 months. And he got it pretty easily because he was the first to grab it, but in just 6 months it went up 300%. It had been going up slowly before that. So it's one of those things where it's kind of like watching all of this is really funny because I'm like, I ain't telling shit.
Yeah.
Neither is my mother, bite me.
Well, I don't want to beat this to death too much because we have to make fun of Dr. Fauci.
Please.
Go for it.
Dr. Fauci absolutely unleashes on his critics. When you attack Dr. Anthony Fauci, you are attacking science.
You're attacking science.
No, you're
Okay.
not. You're attacking Dr. Anthony Fauci.
I am
It's like-
science.
He is not the avatar for science.
I mean, I think any one of us can probably summarize this pretty easily. It's fairly straightforward. You are a scientist. You yourself aren't personally science.
Yeah.
Science is a tool. Science is a methodology.
And
You are a human being with an agenda and a very large paycheck and all kinds of conflicts of interest and all sorts of things that you don't seem to want the rest of us to know about you.
That
We
We
paycheck's
can
nice,
totally,
though.
absolutely question you as much as we goddamn well please.
You're a
But
public,
then he
you're a
can't sell
public
his
servant.
book.
You're a public servant, number one. You work for the federal government. And so shut it, Tony. The interesting thing about this is we've been watching a drift towards scientism from science for a while. Since I know you headed this, the philosophy of science.
Yeah.
And now we are learning who the gods in the pantheon of scientism are. And it's an unpleasant, look, if he wants to play the Loki character in this particular pantheon, that's fitting. But he sorry, Tony, you ain't no Odin.
When I was listening to him, all I could think of is Judge Dredd. Dr. Judge Anthony Dredd. I am the science.
What he reminds me of the judges that were under Mama's pay. That's what he reminds me of. It's a
just
whole Dread movie thing. Sorry.
Just remember that when he publishes a book, that's the first rendition of the Bible of Scientism. And
Those
then
books got pulled.
Yeah, well, I know. I'm just saying, yeah. It's like,
Oh yeah, no, they've gotten pulled from every bookstore and scrubbed from Amazon.
well, yeah. There you go. Well, see, they just need to do some renditions. They need to put it under a different author. They'll be fine.
It's the New Testament. That's what it
Exactly.
is.
It's also the idea of trusting science. If you understand science, and I kind of do, trust isn't one of the words that you would normally use. You would use the word confidence. And you have varying levels of confidence, but you're always prepared to change your position when confronted with new facts.
Well,
It isn't about trust. There's no trust in science.
There also is no consensus per se, but that's thrown around a lot.
Well, yeah. I mean,
more of
there
that
are philosophy-
scientism.
Well, there are philosophy. Well, I'm not really super comfortable with the scientism thing. Do you want to define what you're using here for this?
It is the undue worship and respect of science itself without understanding, without being mindful of the methodology of science.
Well, that's a social phenomenon. That has nothing to do with science itself.
No, but it is seeing science above. Of course it doesn't.
Right.
Scientism doesn't have to do with science. It kind of has to do with the replacing your entire belief system with science and notions of consensus and experts and settled matters and things that all should be anathema to anyone who thinks about the actual function of science, whether
So
you're
it's
talking about
dogma.
popper and falsification
Yeah.
or any of the measurable tests, but something that is predicated on hypotheses, which we were all kind of taught when we were young about the scientific method and formulating hypothesis and testing it rigorously, basically attempting to prove your own theories false in order to
Exactly.
prove your theory to the best that you can, and then float it out there, not just among the team with which you worked for peer review, which is one of the nauseating things that we've been seeing, not just within social science, but there seems to have been in the last year quite a circle jerk between those people approved to peer review policies and those who are heretics. The
Okay.
WHO, the CDC, the NIH, like major European medical agencies, that kind of thing, became very political as to who could say what the science of the pandemic was.
Okay, we need to pin this down a bit. Okay, so the idea of scientism, so it sounds like what you're saying is scientism is a social movement, sort of almost like a cult-like following of science, and replacing the scientific consensus with religious dogma.
Well,
so it's functioning as if it was religious dogma. So there isn't really any sort of scientific process in it, in the people that are following it, because they're not challenging the results. They're not viewing it as an ongoing process to constantly refine things. They're simply taking scientific consensus and treating it like religious dogma.
Well, yes, because they're considering it the only objective means for determining values. I mean, here's the actual definition. If you want to go, we'll go with Wikipedia. The promotion of science is the best or only objective means by which society should determine normative and epistemological values. Now, if that is not ascribing it a philosophical ranking similar to religion, I don't know what is. Where science, just this notion of science, is the only measure. I mean, you're kind of getting near that whole discussion that Stephen Fry and Jordan Peterson had about rationalism versus empiricism.
Because I'll happily defend the scientific method. I won't, but I don't believe in this dogmatic view of these things.
I actually have something I can kind of show briefly if you want to bring up my icon real quick. This is
let's see, how do I make you be the
embiggen him?
There we go.
There we go.
So this is an Etsy recreation of a sign that actually I've seen very often. It was published as a sign you can plant in your front yard in my state a few years back. The cursive line that is in blue, the third line from the bottom, says state science is real. But it's wrapped in all this other stuff. And this is something I've seen actually fairly regularly in the houses around my neighborhood, especially during the Trump administration.
Well, it says all bodies are beautiful above science is real.
Yeah.
And if you look at the science of beauty, putting those things next to each other is pretty rich.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like, I think the way I would describe it is, I'm like, when we're kind of talking about this, is it's not inherently the science is real argument. It's more of what it's also wrapped into. And I think that's kind of the problem too, is it's just part of the package. and the package that's being delivered is almost religious dogma.
Yeah,
too.
it's the
So-
cloak that they wrap themselves in to defend everything else.
Well, I
You
want
know-
to get back to what Prospero was saying for a moment because she said a whole ton of stuff.
Yeah, yes, I did.
And I want to get back to, let's see, how do I not have you be the whole thing here? Okay. So the other thing you were alluding to is sort of the idea of orthodoxy within the scientific community.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, in terms of philosophy of science, we had a great example with the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union did this just all the time.
Lysenko is probably
Lysenkoism,
the poster
but-
boy for it.
Yeah. So Lakatos, is Erme Lakatos? I think he's the person who talked about this. He actually described a sort of a refinement of what Kuhn and other people were talking about in terms of what he calls the research program. And if you look up Lakatos and research program on Wikipedia, because we do not have time to cover this tonight, you'll actually see what he said about it. But he factors in sort of the politics and the frailties of the human beings performing the work.
Yes.
I'm more than happy. I will defend the scientific method and empiricism till I'm blue in the face. I don't think there's anything to be ashamed about those two things. The problem is the perversion of it when you get people with their self-interest involved. It's like, oh, we need an expert witness for this court case. Well, we know a guy that if we pay him enough money, he'll say whatever we need him to say. Done and done.
Yes.
And people like that need to be put in a deep, dark hole and not be scientists anymore.
And the circle jerking of peer review that is going on.
The
that
circle
is-
or paid journals that don't have
Yes.
peer review that
Yeah.
can get cited.
the whole kind of glory of science was the ridicule other scientists would heap on scientists. That was a common thing within scientific societies, let's say in the 19th century, where you would have the Astrological Society. You know, a lot of Great Britain had a number of societies where people would have to be nominated, present a paper to them, be accepted as fellows of the Academy of Science, you know, that kind of thing. And then they would present a paper and half the room would scoff at them. And they'd argue and they'd fuss and they'd fight. Now, there is a bit of navel gazing that goes on in that. But in the halls of institutions like Cambridge and in scientific societies like that, you had competition between scientists. You had races to discovery. You had serious arguments among serious thinkers about the rigors of experimentation and what was the gold standard in rigors of experimentation. And now you have people who say the science is settled and they speak dogmatically about it. When the phrase climate change denier first appeared in about 13, 14 years ago, it began creeping in. That's when you knew that the frailties of the humans and the lack of rigor being maintained inside the academies was beginning to fall apart. Because, okay, I guess I missed the meeting where the auto de fe was established for what is and what isn't science. I mean, are they going to require people to scourge one another, themselves in public, for being incorrect about some scientific fact? Can they not publicly disagree without being scorned and driven from the institutions? It's going on repeatedly within our institutions. The idea that a man can land a comet, a probe on a comet, and be criticized basically into the underground because of a shirt, without the scientific community coming to the defense of the man, or the engineering community at least, because one could say he's an engineer as much as he is a scientist. This is ridiculous. The politicization of STEM is absolutely retarded, and we are going to be left behind by the rest of the world because of this nonsense.
Well, also people trying to get rid of rigor in engineering because they don't think that there's a diverse enough number of people graduating with engineering degrees.
Well,
So
then
we'll
I'm
just
going to
make it
walk
easier.
everywhere I go because I'm not going to get on an airplane that's designed by a committee of social sciences.
Well, we've already
I'm
had a
flown
couple of
by
their
such
bridges
people.
collapse. So, yeah.
Oops.
And
Oopsie.
it's really telling when somebody can't refute the ideas or is open to the challenging of the ideas. I couldn't tell you how many times I would present findings, scientific papers, to contradict somebody who is enveloped themselves in this dogma, and then they attack the person, whether it be myself or the people who presented and researched these findings. They can't attack the argument, they can't attack the ideas or the methodology, they attack the person.
Oh, remember the East Anglia emails?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody involved in the East Anglia emails who was not a devoted servant of Michael Mann's and completely bowing to the UN's IPCC business was considered just a jealous twat.
Yeah,
Or
that's
some
how you don't get your money, is how that happens.
Yeah, and they just get cut off from money, so go ahead and smile and nod and you'll get your research.
Yeah. Like I said, Lakatos.
Yeah.
Lakatos already, his model of science factors a lot of this stuff in, and it does a really good job. And anyway, there are worse things you could do with the next 5 minutes of your life after the show's done than read about research programs on Wikipedia.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. So I think we all agree Fauci does not speak for all science, and we are allowed to question him as much as we damn well please.
Yes.
Yep.
So, stop it.
But the questions are unreasonable. I should not have to field unreasonable questions. Are you or are you not sure of your policies? Are you not sure of your science, sir?
I thought the science was settled.
Because if you are, you should be able to defend it against the most ridiculous alchemical claims that come up.
Well, then you should enjoy this bit of science. Half-baked lobsters doused with pot smoke to test pain during cooking.
I generally put the THC in the butter after it's cooked.
Yeah, I was
Also,
gonna
if you're that worried about lobsters feeling pain, there's a way to just dispatch them before
Yes.
you boil them that
It's
you're
a knife
supposed
to the
to
back
do.
of the neck.
Yeah, you sever their brainstem before.
But don't
Yeah.
don't let facts get in the way of a good narrative here. This brings new meaning to putting lobsters in the pot. U.S. researchers redefined lobster pot after testing whether dosing the crustaceans with marijuana smoke could ease their pain as they're being cooked.
this is fucking vanity science. Total vanity
yeah.
science. It's
That's
a
why it's
waste
in
of
the-
taxpayer
That's why
money.
it's in the fun block.
I mean,
Yeah.
if I can play devil's advocate, it's also a practical testing of the properties of THC.
Well,
On
in
The active
lobsters?
ingredients in marijuana.
On
Yes,
lobsters.
yes, because it's something that we can easily register the pain levels in.
but it doesn't tell us anything about mammalian models.
No, it doesn't.
No.
So the point being, there's nothing practical about seeing how much we can anesthetize lobsters. As
You
a
can put-
practical matter, you can just do what Serenity was saying and jab the point of the knife in at the
Bifurcate
back
their
of their neck,
And
And
bring
it's
it down.
over.
toss them in the pot.
Yeah,
And it's
right.
over in like half a second.
Oh yeah, working in the kitchen, nobody else would do the lobsters but me because people were,
Well, this could be something for Sanguine's smoking gun that he keeps talking about.
People
all the
used
time.
to stick them in the freezer because they would go so that by the time they could even awaken in the pot, they were gone.
yeah.
You could hypnotize them. You literally
there's-
get them to stand on their heads on the counter.
Or you could
Yeah,
just you
like
could just make
chickens.
them breathe pot smoke.
Yeah, but this is. I mean, it I'm sorry, but it's
But
without.
this is such a great experience. And look at this graphic. Look at that graphic. There's like, let's see, I scroll
Someone
up here.
lost the Photoshop. That's so terrible.
You've got like you've got
I think
like
I found my new avatar.
you've got like a lobster holding a joint surrounded by a bunch of pot.
I wonder if this is Jordan Peterson approved.
Yeah, I was gonna say. And how does pot smoking affect their hierarchical
Well,
nature?
that is true. So to test whether exposing lobster to cannabis smoke reduced their trauma, the scientists placed several store-bought Maine lobsters in a sealed
that's
box filled with
controls.
tetrahydrocannabinol, THC, the
Suffocate
psychoactive
them.
ingredient in
Yeah,
marijuana,
basically.
for 30 to 60 minutes at a time. The weed vapor was delivered in 10-second spurts every 5 minutes. So basically, they hotboxed a bunch of lobsters.
Yeah.
They found
Mr.
that
Scientist, I'm a lobster.
the critters' movements noticeably slowed down While samples taken later from their gills, claws, hearts, brain, and liver revealed that the lobsters did indeed absorb the THC. Good job, Sherlock. You figured that out all by itself. And did they ask for any Cheetos at any point? Or, or Doritos? Let's see. After removing
all
and
the
rinsing
Captain
the
Crunch
lobsters,
disappeared from the kitchen.
the
Sleepy
scientists
crab.
lowered them into 118.4 degree water to see how they reacted. It doesn't say whether this is Celsius or Fahrenheit, because that would, I guess it would have to be in a pressure chamber to get 118 Celsius. Never mind.
Yeah,
But the blazed crustaceans still didn't take too kindly to being cooked, as they still made distinct motor responses upon contact with the boiling water, per the study. Look at a little sad little lobster. Tail
Tasty little
immersion
bitch.
resulted in a clear
Yeah.
response of legs and claws and or a strong flick of the tail, wrote the scientists, adding that the latter is the escape response of lobsters and crayfish and confirms the noxiousness of the stimulus. The
So
researchers'
dumb.
conclusion: dousing lobsters with pot smoke doesn't dull their pain.
Yeah, but that's not applicable to humans at all.
It isn't, but this
it-
is just
No.
your tax dollars at work right here.
Because
I'm happy.
crustaceans also have a much more adverse react to something caustic like smoke than mammalians
Yeah.
do. We can at least survive quite a bit of smoke inhalation before sea fish, crustaceans cannot.
Yeah,
Maybe CBD oil might have saved them.
That's why I was wondering why they're using smoke. It just seems so weird.
So
Because
this way they
these
can get
people
the
are
pot.
idiots.
why didn't they do
Yeah,
it with
so they can
cockroaches, for
smoke it.
Christ's sake? Because
It's the
that's all
same
they
thing.
are.
It's
Yeah,
closer, yeah.
They're sea cockroaches. That's all they are. Well, it's like there's still people who think that when you air quotes hear the screaming when they're put in the pot, that's them screaming. And it's like it's not. You
The moisture
morons.
inside
It's
escaping.
the
Yeah.
moisture going fee out of it. It's all. I mean, it's.
Yeah.
I mean, honest to God, these people will stomp a cockroach faster than, Bob's your uncle. But they know the poor lobster's feeling pain. You just killed its land cousin.
And this puts
I'm
such
definitely
a
becoming
damper-
a vegan when this is all over.
Well,
This
please,
puts such
more
a
lobster
damper
for
on
the rest of
actual
us.
research.
really.
Yeah, you can really taste the suffering. Let's see.
I do wonder if, since they could catch residue of THC on like their gills and stuff like that, well, not their gills, but on their shells and stuff, if it ever actually made it into the meat, and if that had any discernible effect on the meat. Or
I
anything
don't
like
think
that.
it can with the concentration levels in
Okay.
the smoke. You'd have to do a full-on THC
This
injection.
lobster tastes like bong water.
Yeah.
Lord.
Gross. God.
Okay. Speaking of which, oh my God, I'm in a whale's mouth. Lobster diver says he was nearly swallowed by whale off of Cape Cod. I just want you to
So
see how
funny.
seamlessly
Until we,
I have these articles going.
until we
one to
blew
the other.
THC smoke up the
We got
whales.
lobster. We got
It's like Pinocchio, but with pot.
Yeah.
So Provincetown, a lobster diver says he was nearly swallowed by a whale in a terrifying encounter off Cape Cod Friday morning. Michael
it's-
Packard has been a lobster diver out of Provincetown for 40 years, but he has never experienced anything like this. Packard told WBZ TV News that after jumping off of his boat into the water, he felt this huge bump and everything went dark. At first, he feared he was being attacked by a shark. And then I felt around and I realized there were no teeth. And then I realized, oh my God, I'm in a whale's mouth and he's trying to swallow me. Packard said he thought to himself, this is it, I'm going to die. He thought about his kids and wife and felt that there was no getting out of a whale's mouth. Then all of a sudden, he went up to the surface and just erupted and started shaking his head. I got thrown in the air and landed in the water. I was free and just floated there. I couldn't believe it. I'm here to tell it. And there's the guy right there, giving the big thumbs up. He's like, look at me. I did not die inside the mouth of a
Wouldn't
whale.
it be easier to escape if you were in the stomach, though? Because, it's just blubber and...
Yeah, if it's big enough that it had the is it called brill teeth? I forget what they're called. But if it had it would not have been easy to get out of the stomach.
Wait,
Oh,
a
I-
moment ago we were saying we couldn't move Stacey Abrams, and now you're thinking you can punch your way out of the blubber in a whale's stomach? Come on, Functional, what is it?
If I'm a diver, yeah, then I have my diving knife and...
Well, the thing is, there's I remember years ago they talked about finding bits of knight's armor in some whales' stomachs, so I don't know about that. They get thawed.
I don't know. Like, I mean, I
this
don't know
is
much.
very
I know,
biblical.
I know.
This is very biblical, though. I mean, we've got that whole thing about Jonah and the whale, and then
I'm sure he
Pinocchio.
walked on water after that.
Didn't Pinocchio hang out inside a whale for a while?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
Geppetto did.
Was
Geppetto
that with
did.
Geppetto?
And he-
Geppetto.
Geppetto lit the fire, and the whale coughed him out. Yeah, this guy's name is now Jonah, not Joe.
It's definitely a whale of a tale.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
it. To the corner, Giads.
He's damn lucky to
I
be
am the
alive,
corner.
said Captain Joe
Monster.
Francis, who was heading a fishing charter nearby. He got a front row seat to the narrow escape. Then I saw Mike come flying out of the water, feet first with his flippers on, and land back in the water. I jumped aboard the boat. We got him up, got his tank off, got him on the deck and calmed him down. And he goes, "Joe, I was in the mouth of a whale." He says, "I can't believe it. I was in the mouth of a whale, Joe." Packard feared his legs were broken, but he was able to leave the hospital later in the day and could walk with a limp. The Provincetown Fire Department confirmed they responded to a call at 8:15 a.m. to an injured lobsterman off Race Point. The whale tale took social media by storm Friday afternoon. The lobster diver estimates he was in the whale's mouth for about 30 seconds. "It was happening so fast," a stunned Packard said. "My only thought was how to get out of that mouth." Okay, there's a lot of jokes that we could probably
Yeah.
write about here.
Giggity.
Filter. Okay,
think the
Peter
whale was just fucking
Corcoran,
with them.
a senior
Yeah.
scientist at the New England Aquarium, told WBZ-TV that when humpback whales feed, they do what we call gulp feeding, and they can open up their mouths incredibly widely.
Kamala?
It's a very unusual accident. They have no knees. Whales don't have knees. That's not a workable joke.
They
It was an very unusual accident. This is a 1 in a goodness knows what trillion chance. He was just unlucky enough to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Corkerson said whales are generally not interested in bothering humans, but it's a good idea for people in the water to stay 100 yards away from whales at all time. You think?
What kind of whales are they, Jenna?
Humpback.
Humpback? Oh, okay, so they're rather large.
Yeah.
Okay.
Barbie
it says right there.
whales.
Says right there, humpback.
Arr.
Yeah, we have to preserve the humpbacks before the giant space whale comes in the 23rd century. Okay.
Giant alien dildo.
So I don't know. I just found it
Beluga?
pretty amusing that we had something like this actually happen. That I can't even imagine what would be going through my mind if I got swallowed by a whale.
I'd be wailing for help.
You'd be wailing for help.
Yes.
Stop.
I don't know.
And the name of the whale in Pinocchio was Monstro, by the way.
Was it?
Monstro.
Yeah, I'd say that.
Monstro. Yeah.
Monstro.
Oh,
But he had
let's
teeth.
see. I think that might be everything. So, if there is anything that you guys would like to talk about, the floor is open.
I'm
Don't
looking
snicker at me.
information on like yearly death by whales. There doesn't seem to be much of
Yeah, because
anything.
it's not a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, other than orcas, which are dicks, really, whales don't kill people all that much. I mean, Captain Ahab was kind of a nitwit,
Slightly obsessed. Yes.
slightly obsessed.
And in fact, most of the whale deaths, unnatural whale deaths each year are for the last 40 years are caused by humans. Maybe this one was just like he was at the end of his rope and he just stupid humans, and then he was like, "Oh God, tastes like bong water."
There's so much I could say right now, given where this guy lives, but I am not going to say it because it would get us the yeet.
Yeah, I think we need to have Jenna track this guy down and see if he's for real.
Bring him on the show.
No.
Saturday
No.
guest edition.
No. I put my foot
Streamable.
down. No.
He's totally streamable as far as I'm concerned.
No,
All
he's
right.
not.
So nothing else from you folks?
Not that I can think of.
Any final words before we say goodnight to our fine chat?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Strong minds discuss ideas. Average minds discuss events. Weak minds discuss people. Socrates.
Damn. That's actually really good. Can you do that one again?
No, I just closed the tab.
You suck so hard.
Control Shift T.
I know.
Say it in your narrator voice.
Strong minds discuss ideas. Average minds discuss events. Weak minds discuss people. Socrates.
So it's like Socrates ASMR the way you're doing it now.
There you go.
That's good.
Let's talk about Tony Fauci some more.
Yeah, nitwit.
The
I
little
am the
gnome that
science.
could.
Yeah, I'm
Anybody
sorry
else?
the whale didn't swallow him.
Yeah.
I've been told to be quiet, so I'm good.
Yeah, you just sit there in the corner and do
Be
whatever rocks do.
igneous.
Prospero, what about you?
No, I just no.
Nope, you're losing the will to live. I'm
Pretty
thanks for
much.
being on, and thank you for being on and providing adult supervision. And Serenity, you got anything?
The only thing I have to say is that I find it hilarious that I have seen more and more people on social media go, I voted for Biden. I didn't vote for Joe Manchin. I don't like the fact we're being controlled by Joe Manchin. I'm sitting here going, you're morons.
That's your
But that's
governor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
No, that's
Senator.
Senator,
Senator.
sorry. Right.
He's the Dem who leans Republican, but then doesn't lean Republican. He's wishy-washy sometimes. But no, it's just funny.
Well, we've reached the end of our show then. Thank you to my panel for joining me tonight, and thank you to chat for being the wonderful people that you are. This is the end of our stream. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Night.
Good night.